This one is wild. I don't understand what she was doing or what she was thinking. So Susie Wiles is the White House chief of staff. Remember, Miller is the deputy chief of staff. She's the chief of staff. Over the course of 11 interviews, Ms. Wiles offered pungent assessments of the president and his team. Mr. Trump, quote, has an alcoholic's personality. Vice President J.D. Vance has, quote, been a conspiracy theorist for a decade, and his conversion from Trump critic to ally was based not on principle but was, quote, sort of political because he was running for Senate. Elon Musk is, quote, an avowed ketamine user and an odd duck whose actions were not always rational and left her aghast. Russell T. Vought, the budget director, is, quote, a right-wing absolute zealot, and Attorney General Pam Bondi, quote, completely whiffed in handling the Epstein files. Isn't she one of the few competent people in this admin? Yes. Susie Wiles is one of the few people who has been close to Trump for a long time who genuinely keeps the lights on. Easily, she laps everyone around her in terms of competence and intelligence, but she's also not ideologically a super far-right zealot in the same way that, I don't know, Miller is or whatever. You know, she's been around for a long time. Her goal, basically like her self-admitted goal, has basically, yeah, just been to babysit Trump, you know? Make sure that however crazy things get with him, they always stay on top of things enough that they don't completely fall apart. Apparently, she's been trying to say the interview was fake, but they have proof. Okay, there is a lot of drama here, all right? Miss Wiles took issue with the quote attributed to her about his drug use. That's ridiculous, she said. I wouldn't have said it and I wouldn't know. But Mr. Whipple played a tape for the times in which she could be heard saying it. So here's what I think happened here. And again, I could be completely incorrect. I could be just guessing. I think there's a lot up in the air right now. But I think what happened is that Susie Wiles, over and over and over again, met with Vanity Fair writer Chris Whipple, phenomenal name. And in many of these interviews, Susie Wiles was aware of the fact she was being interviewed. But in others, she seemed to think that she was just venting off the record. She thought she was just chilling. And my interpretation from this is that Susie Wiles has spent so long with the lunatics in the Trump administration that she was desperate for the opportunity to vent for a bit to a competent journalist. That's what I think. I think that, listen, Susie Wiles is not stupid, okay? That's just off the table. We know for a fact that she isn't. And she's also not particularly careless. In my opinion, she is that mentally compromised. Like, she is so fed up with this administration. She is so exhausted at working with these drug addicts and these content creator narcissists and so on, like just these completely politically ineffective people that she has to babysit constantly, you know, that she was just desperate for the opportunity to talk to a more or less normal person on the inside, you know, to talk to an adult. Yeah, she needed a therapist, basically. There's Wiles with the big hair. Do you think this could get her fired? I genuinely do not think the Trump administration could function without Susie Wiles. I don't. I don't think so. I think that she does so much work on the back end. That being said, they might still fire her. I mean, they could. But does the Trump admin know that? I do not know. Susie Wiles, J.D. Vance, and the Junkyard Dogs. The White House Chief of Staff on Trump's second term. Throughout the first year of Trump's second administration, Vanity Fair writer Chris Whipple has interviewed Wiles amid each moment of crisis. So this isn't just one interview. This is 11 of them together. And it seems like she didn't know all of them were on the record. This insider's account joins a portfolio of portraits for an unflinching up-close look at power and peril. I do not think this has happened yet in this administration. The first Trump term was like riddled with people who left the administration and then blabbed to journalists, and you got like an inside look. Right now, the only inside look we get is from leaks, you know? The actual like, administrative fortress hasn't really cracked up until now, at least. Though now Susie Wiles is like adamantly denying a bunch of the stuff that she said. She's saying this is like a hoax, this was faked. And I think this is just her panicked response because she realized like, oh, I was the first one to break. It was me.
I cannot tell you how many conspiracy theories I've heard about how this interview got published, whether it was the idea that she thought she was talking off the record, whether it was the idea that she was sitting for some kind of other interview that wasn't going to be published immediately, that it has something to do with the 2028 campaign, because Susie Wiles is a calculated and political figure. Everything she does has meaning. She is not somebody who seeks the limelight. She doesn't get out there in the press and do constant interviews. So the fact that she did this to so many people who are close to President Trump say that it must mean something. Now, of course, again, Wiles has said that that's not the case, that it was just taken out of context. There was an omission in much of what she said. But again, this has caused quite a stir here at the White House.
Yeah, no kidding. Probably a lot of infighting, too. I mean, I imagine that people there are furious with her, which, understandably.
This just in, a revealing new interview with really the most powerful person in President Trump's White House beyond him. Chief of Staff Susie Wiles commenting and going there on a wide range of topics, it seems, with Vanity Fair in a new series of interviews, from the handling of the Epstein investigation to her assessment of the big names on Donald Trump's team. Let's get to CNN's Elena Treen, who is at the White House. There seems to be a lot in there, Elena. What is your big takeaway?
I mean, look, I've covered the president, and I've also covered Susie Wiles for years now, Kate, and this is one of the most candid interviews and stories that she's...
Don't worry, we'll take a bit of a look at it.
She's offered interviews. She's offered really from the entire time I've done that. This is incredibly candid, some of the things that she was admitting, because I will tell you, too, Wiles is someone who often likes to...
This reminds me of the Trump DOJ prosecutor who was just texting a lib lawyer reporter info about her jobs for weeks unprompted. I think that stuff like this, like a lot of the leaks happen because of this. There are probably lots of people in the Trump administration or just in the federal agencies they control that aren't incredibly stupid zealots. And because they're not incredibly stupid zealots and they're surrounded by and controlled by stupid zealots, they're like, please, God, I will do or say anything. Let me talk to a journalist. Let me talk to a person who can allow me to share information with them anonymously, who I can vent to about my job, and they will protect my identity. But they also know where I'm coming from. I'm not just talking to a random person off of, Tinder or whatever, right?
Operate kind of in the shadows and quietly. She doesn't like to draw attention to herself. And that's why I think some of what people are waking up and reading this morning is so stunning to hear about. But let me get into some of the main things that I found.
Maybe she's always been the leak. No, she's fully in on this project. This is a fuck up. I guarantee you. She probably meant to share some somewhat revealing but largely okay stuff with Vanity Fair. She intended to say, yeah, it's a zoo back here, but we're all trying our best. Haha. Maybe buff up her own reputation a little bit so if the administration goes underwater, she can still look like the one good person from it. Keep in mind, she has her own career to look after, right? She's like, well, if Trump sinks this ship, let people know I did my best. We'll lay a breadcrumb trail through Vanity Fair. People will understand that I was one of the ones doing actual work. But she seems to have revealed too much.
Very notable from what Chris Whipple, who works with Vanity Fair, detailed from their conversations. One is that Wiles referred to President Trump as someone having a, quote, alcoholic personality. She also talked a lot about the vice president, J.D. Vance, someone who I should note, had this conversion that Whipple noted as well from never Trumper to a MAGA acolyte. Susie Wiles essentially said that change, that conversion has been, quote, sort of political. And she said the vice president has been a, quote, conspiracy theorist for a decade. She also talked about Russell Vought. He is the White House budget chief, but he's also, of course, one of the architects of that notorious Project 2025 conservative blueprint for the future Republican Party, something that Trump had previously, of course, disavowed. She argued that Vought is, quote, a right-wing absolute zealot. And then she also went into a number of different things. One, she talked about Pam Bondi, the attorney general, someone who is one of her closest friends, I should note, in this administration. She argued that Bondi, quote, completely whiffed the handling of the Epstein file. She also talked about how the president, who came in and offered a series of pardons to really roughly 1,000 people who were convicted for their crimes on January 6th, she essentially admitted that she had urged the president not to pardon those who had committed violent crimes on January 6th and on the Capitol attack. She also talked about how she disagreed with him sometimes when it came to tariffs, saying that she had urged him.
Yeah, she's like the one competent person in the administration. So basically anytime Trump does something incredibly stupid, she's probably behind the scenes, like gently pressing him not to, but not too hard, because she knows that he doesn't like her that much. No, maybe we shouldn't cripple the global economy with needless tariffs that do nothing. No, maybe we shouldn't expend political capital pardoning 1,000 violent insurrectionists in such a fashion that does nothing for our movement, but does give people more ammunition against us.
To delay some of the tariffs that he ultimately announced. And it goes on. There's a lot of other areas where she kind of talks about kind of
women always forced
him,
to clean up after
many
such cases
as a facilitator, rather than past White House chiefs that we've seen, notably people like John Kelly during the president's first administration, who at times tried to hold him back. She sees as her job trying to kind of shape what he does, but also not preventing him from doing what he wants to do. One very notable quote as well that stuck out to me, just given the context of what's very much in the news right now, is Venezuela. She admitted publicly that one of the goals of this administration and the president is actually to see regime change in Venezuela and oust Nicolas Maduro. I should note that is not what the White House line has been on this. The White House line has been that this is all about trying to crack down on narco-terrorists and illegal drug trafficking. She essentially said this on Venezuela. She said, quote,
"Performative misandry, yes, but true." It's only a little bit performative, because I have seen, I don't know like what your guys' experience with this are, but like once you see what weaponized incompetence from a man looks like in a relationship, it takes so much willpower to not generalize this into a kill all men-esque pseudo-feminist agenda. You know what I mean? The first time you meet a boyfriend who's really bad at stuff deliberately to make his girlfriend do it, and you just look at that and that dynamic and you're like, you're both just playing into this, it's so difficult to not rubber band in the other direction from that one. It's pretty bad.
He wants to keep on blowing boats up until Maduro cries uncle, and people way smarter than me on that say that he will. Again, a major contradiction in what we've heard from the White House on all of this. And the last thing I just want to quickly point you to, there's a lot in this. I do encourage our audience to actually go and read.
I'm virtue signaling. Listen, I keep my house clean pretty good. I'm good. I hand mop floors when to get in the corners. I do dishes. I like cleaning, okay? But there is one thing where I will, it always pops in my head. You know that drawing of like the femboy, and he's trying to pick up the gallon of milk and he's bending over at the waist and he's saying, "Somebody help me," or something like that. I'm like that whenever it comes to bagging groceries. When I'm out with my friends and we've got the groceries, and I'm usually paying, by the way, so just keep that in mind. That's my contribution to the bit. And then it comes time to bag the groceries. And if I'm made to do it, I'm just out there putting eggs at the bottom. Okay, I'm the femboy. Help! I can't. That's just what my brain shuts down. I can't do it. I'm not doing it. I will pay. Let me buy it, okay? The amount these groceries cost is worth less to me than the convenience of not having to. Are you stupid or something? Yes. Yes, I'm very dumb.
These very lengthy and detailed articles from Vanity Fair. But she talked about retribution, and she said that she had some sort of agreement with the president that she didn't want him to be focused on score settling, that she was going to give him 90 days and then he kind of had to move on from it. But she also acknowledged that some of the recent indictments we've seen against some of the presidents.
That femboy image must be a core memory of yours or something. It's really funny. It's the expression, the fact that he's at like a parallel to the floor and the jug of milk hasn't even lifted at its corner off the ground. It's incredibly funny. It's really, really, really funny. So yeah, I would say it is kind of locked in my memory a little bit.
Political foes, people like the former FBI director James Comey or the New York Attorney General Letitia James, both people who we've seen this Trump administration now bring indictments against. She admitted that, yeah, that kind of is political. She said the Letitia James indictment specifically, she said that one you could call retribution. And so,
well, that'll definitely make any future cases against Letitia James way the fuck more difficult to get prosecutions for. All right. This makes me think he would have been way worse with the personal score settling without Wiles. Actually, the feeling that I'm getting from this is that Trump has ignored Wiles pretty much nonstop in this administration, which is maybe the reason why she's talking to Vanity Fair, even though she ended up letting go more than she intended to. Because it seems like he's ignored her on everything. Every single point that she's saying they disagreed on is something that Trump ended up doing.
Incredible stuff in here from Wiles, who, again, one of the most powerful people, if not the most powerful person in this White House, apart from Trump, being very, very candid in this interview, Kate.
A lot more to come. Elena Treen, thank you so much. Important that you're hearing publicly, really for the first time, someone as high up as Susie Wiles saying that the point is to get Maduro out, not just stop drug trafficking from the nation. This is
Yeah, we all knew that already. The actual interview with her, or like the pieced together bits of the interviews with her, are quite long. Oh man, I love the portraits. Here's Carolyn Levitt, the portraits from Christopher Anderson. Hold on, where's the? Yeah, here we go. Here's all them serving. They assume. I like Stephen Miller, who looks like he's trying to hover. Right here, he's sitting on the arm of the chair. JD Vance always looks funny. The only person here who looks halfway normal, honestly, is Marco Rubio. Because Marco Rubio is a suit, like, you know, capital S suit, right? He's like an agent. Susie Wiles, the enforcer. Can we just look at the pictures for a second? These the Christopher Anderson's excellent photography work. Do you think that Christopher Anderson has to like show them the pictures afterwards, or do you think they just assume he'll only use flattering pictures? Man, new emote. This actually does look like a pretty good emote. I'm not going to lie. That's pretty good. What emotes do we have right now that signify disgust? This might replace them. Make it the weird champ. It is kind of weird champ-esque, you know? It is judgmental. Replace mine, the oof. It could replace oof. It is better than my oof. I need to get rid of a cucker. It's just not a good emote. Why can't we just have an additional emote? Because you don't want to have 17 emotes that all like vaguely imply the same thing. Shut up. We're not having this conversation right now. Holy shit. Jesus Christ. Christopher Anderson hates these guys. I haven't seen such pointed anti-MAGA photography work since right after the election, the Cruel Kids table. Who was it? Was that the New Yorker? Which publication had that? It was when they had the post-Trump victory party, and there were all those 20-somethings there in their cheap, you know, wannabe 1950s suits, and the high contrast photos made them all look like sociopaths. I don't know much at all about Dan Scavino, I'm not going to lie. This looks historical. He looks like the Penguin. All these pictures are so mean. They're really funny. He looks like Hoover. He does look a little bit like Hoover. He hates these guys. Halfway normal looking here. Only halfway. Carolyn Levitt. By the way, again, really important to remember, Carolyn Levitt, younger than me. Insane. Marco Rubio just looks like the conversion from neoconservatism to MAGA has been killing him. Why is he so pockmarked? Is he normally this pockmarked? It's like a plague taking over him. You can literally see her lip filler injection points. Up, man. A Marine stand sentry. Got a bit of a stanky leg here. Much more normal looking here. Anyway, enough photos. Part one of the Vanity Fair interview, you know, collection is, I think, talking largely about the context of the interview and also all the events leading up to the circumstances during which the interviews took place. And the second one is what has the bits, the quips. And you can just jump to like any point on this. All of them make the Trump administration look really bad. As Noah Shetman reported in Vanity Fair, dozens and dozens of FBI agents at the New York field office were tasked with combing through the Epstein files. Many observers assumed they were looking for and possibly redacting Trump's name. Wiles told me she'd read what she calls the Epstein file, and she said Trump is in the file, and we know he's in the file, and he's not in the file doing anything awful. So if the Epstein file, I don't know what she's referring to. There are tens of thousands of documents being perused by the DOJ. Wiles said Trump was on the Lolita Express. He's on the manifest. They were, you know, sort of young, single, whatever. I know it's a passé word, but sort of young, single playboys together. Trump has claimed without evidence that Bill Clinton visited Epstein's infamous private island, Little St. James, supposedly 28 times. There's no evidence those visits happened, according to Wiles. As for whether there was anything incriminating about Clinton in the files, quote, the president was wrong about that. This is about Venezuela and how internally the administration is looking for regime change with Maduro. Rubio and Vance. The average tenure for a modern White House chief of staff is 1.5 years. Is Wiles really irreplaceable, as Rubio said? Not patting myself on the back, but just recognizing the reality of this president at this time, she said, I'm just not sure who else could do this. I wonder if there's going to be blowback. Like real blowback, I mean, from this. Trump might just ignore it. Actually, there's a non-zero chance that Trump never really, finds out how bad it is. Remember how when the Supreme Court ruled against him, Miller just protected him from the information? He might actually just not find out, you know? Bill Daley, Obama's former chief of staff, believes Trump and his team could fall victim to overreach. There's no doubt the Charlie Kirk assassination gives them the opportunity to put the left on its heels. They believe they're in an incredibly strong position to do whatever the hell they want. And usually that's when people make mistakes, they go too far. Yeah? God, look at what's happening over at CBS these days. Anyway, apparently Vance has already talked about this.
Lisa, I want to start with you. You covered the Trump administration in the first go-round. Ish. Yeah. I mean, we all did. And yes. I'm going to get to you in 1 second, Brian. But let's just kind of zoom in on Epstein, because I talked about the politics, but let's talk about some of the personalities and the policy here, because this to me is like, wow. Okay. First, she says about Pam Bondi. I think Pam Bondi completely whiffed on appreciating that was the very targeted group that cared about this, meaning she's talking about a moment at the very beginning of the second term where they brought in influencers and gave them binders, and they were not satisfied with it. First, she gave them binders full of nothingness. Then she said that the witness list or the client list was on her desk. There is no client list, and it sure as hell wasn't on her desk. Okay. Then fast forward to
CNN.
That moment when
Todd
Blanche, who was the president's personal attorney, now the deputy attorney general, went to see Ghislaine Maxwell in prison and talked to her, interviewed her, and then released the recordings. She reveals that she and the president didn't know anything about it. Most importantly, the president didn't know about it. According to Wiles, it was Blanche's suggestion. The president was ticked. The president was mighty unhappy. I don't know why they moved her. Neither does the president. And when I said know about the fact that they moved her to a
I'm sorry. I'm at a loss. I don't understand.
And then
multi-trillion-dollar news network. I don't know.
There is no evidence Bill Clinton visited Epstein's island, according to Wiles. As for whether there was anything incriminating about Clinton in the files, the president was wrong about that.
Well, this is a series of disclosures about how the White House effectively is what she's saying mishandled this Epstein situation. It's I think it's something that those of us who have been following this story, who have been watching how it's been received in MAGA world, it's not particularly surprising, but it's shocking to hear her say it and to hear the chief of staff of the White House admit that effectively they blew the handling of the Epstein files. There's one thing that I wanted to point out where she talks about...
I'm just taking a guess here, but I'm pretty confident on this one. I think that Susie Wiles is 100% the type of person who would effectively be like, yeah, of course, Trump is a pedophile. Who cares? He is an agent serving the interests of capital, our donors and our businesses. Just don't make a fuss out of it. Like what? Like in her mind, she's like, yeah, okay, whatever. Like we're talking about on the whole, like trillions of dollars circulating through his power. Like this is immaterial in comparison to that. Why are you doing the populist stint of like drawing attention to it? Like her criticism isn't that they should have released the Epstein files and been transparent. Their criticism is like, Pam Bondi, why did you play this up to begin with? You should have just stamped down on this from the beginning. You know, she is evil. I hope I haven't made her sympathetic to you.
Ghislaine Maxwell and says the president doesn't know, why. She says the president didn't ask for her to be moved, doesn't know why she was moved. There's a really important caveat there where Vanity Fair went back to her and asked, updated, because whenever that interview happened, it clearly was a while ago, and asked, well, do you know now? We're about to publish. Do you know now why she was moved to the minimum security prison? Yeah. And she responded that they printed that she still didn't know, which indicates that she knew this piece was coming, that the magazine had gone back to her and asked for follow-up, which is a pretty clear tell that she was really given some advance notification that this was coming. We're asking for whether, a follow-up on this interview we did a while ago, and this is coming. So she had to know she had to anticipate this was coming out.
And copies were even...
She definitely knew some of this was going to be made into an article. I do not think she knew how much of it was
circulating last night. I read an embargoed copy of this last night. Wiles knew about this at least a couple days in advance. I used to write for Vanity Fair, so I know the fact-checking process is very vigorous. Editors, fact-checkers, they go over the quotes, they go over the sourcing, they go back to the subjects of a story like this, and that's what happened in this case with Wiles. Apparently she claimed that she didn't say it, and then the New York Times was able to listen to the tape from Chris Whipple. And who is Chris Whipple, right? He is the person who wrote the book about chiefs of staff. He has convened chiefs of staff in the past. Clearly, she was confiding in someone she thought she trusted, right? Someone who wrote a book about chiefs of staff. Maybe she was thinking about her own legacy. But she's telling the truth, right? All these quotes are accurate. People have speculated about Elon Musk's drug use for years. There have been concerns about Musk's drug use for years.
I knew.
Trump has an alcoholic's personality. What do we say every time he goes on a tirade on True Social? We say he sounds like the drunk at the end of the bar.
Saying that he has an alcoholic's personality is particularly biting too, because Trump famously doesn't drink. Like he's what was it? His brother or something, his cousin, fell victim to alcoholism. So, saying like, oh, well, yeah, you didn't drink for 80 years, but you ended up acting like one anyway. His brother? Yeah, pretty funny.
I know he doesn't drink.
Right. And not only does he not drink, he has a brother who passed away because of addiction, and that is why he is an avowed sober man.
Yes. And yet, every time he goes on a tirade on True Social, people say he sounds like an alcoholic. He says, what else did she say? Bondi, whiffing on the Epstein files. We've all been saying that all year long. She says the president was wrong about Clinton. That's true. That's accurate. So it's really notable here that she's simply telling the truth, and that's what the scandal is.
We actually have, I should say, in addition to the text that I was just saying as we went on the air that I was getting, and others are as well, we are seeing not only Susie Wiles come out and say what she said I read at the top. Caroline Levitt is supporting her. Russ Vought, who Susie Wiles called a right-wing zealot, is come out on social media and said that he fully supports her. J.D. Vance, the vice president, just spoke about this. Let's listen.
Hold on 1 second. I'm learning apparently that Vanity Fair is being extremely funny about this. Look at this shit. This is real. During the Vanity Fair photo session, Vance cracked, "I'll give you $100 for every person you make look really shitty compared to me, and $1,000 if it's Marco." They hate these guys, dude. Holy shit. They hate them. I mean, he should pay up. I mean, I think that maybe he owes them $100 because of Carolyn Levitt. But apart from that, no, it's real. It's not a shitpost. Jesus Christ.
Unfortunately, I have to ask a bit of an off-topic question from affordability because news events do intervene, and that is the interviews that White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles gave to Vanity Fair, in which she's quoted as referring to you as, excuse me, and again, not my words, sir, but a conspiracy theorist of a decade, and described your transformation from
not happy
someone who once opposed President Trump to now his vice president as an act of political expediency. And I'd like to give you the chance to respond to that, sir.
Well, first of all, if Susie, I'll trust what you said. I haven't looked at the article. I of course
not happy, dude. Holy shit.
Heard about it, but conspiracy theorist. Sometimes I am a conspiracy theorist, but I only believe in the conspiracy theories that are true.
That's it? That's what he's got? Oh my God. The responses across the board have been really, really, really telling. This was blindsiding to them. Like, Susie Wiles has basically been group mom, you know? Susie Wiles has been group mom for like nearly a decade now. She's been the glue holding it together. Waking up one day and finding out, oh yeah, it turns out she trashed all of you in this very tell-all article.
Years. As for the Vanity Fair article, Michael, I'll take your question directly. This is, unfortunately, another example of disingenuous reporting, where you have a reporter who took the chief of staff's words wildly out of context, did not include the context those conversations were had within. And then further, I think the most egregious part of this article was the bias of omission that was clearly present. And we see a lot of this when dealing with the media every day. you will leave out important context, leave out context.
They're really in a position of weakness here too, because they can't directly attack Susie Wiles, right? So they can't say, oh, this is all a lie, Susie Wiles is evil and Trump derangement syndrome, etc., right? Because it's coming from within the House. So they have to do this weak, you know, mealy-mouthed, the full context of these statements probably didn't like sound as bad. They're not able to go on the attack, essentially, which is what they normally do.
Comments and facts. You know, many people in this building spoke with that reporter, and those comments were never included in the story, probably because it didn't push this false narrative of chaos and confusion that the reporter was clearly trying to push. So what I'll say about our chief of staff, as you've seen from not just myself, but also the entire cabinet, and a groundswell of support from people on Capitol Hill who don't even work in this building, about how incredible Susie Wiles has been to President Trump. And he's been able to accomplish so much because of his leadership and his tenacity, but also because of Chief of Staff Wiles's leadership and her ability to effectuate his agenda. So thank you.
They need her so badly. So I guess she won't be ousted then, probably. At least based on what we're seeing here. They're not turning on her at all. They really need her. That's super embarrassing. I wonder how Trump is going to respond, you know, considering the fact that he has less control over himself than the other people in the administration.
She goes on after that. You can read the full thing on X, but what happened? What went wrong?
Well, look, I would just echo my boss, Susie Wiles, who is the best chief of staff in our nation's history, working for the greatest president in our nation's history, and that this was, unfortunately, another attempt at fake news by a reporter who was acting disingenuously and really did take the chief's words out of context. But I think most importantly, the bias of omission was ever present throughout this story. The reporter omitted all of the positive things that Susie and our team said about the president and the inner workings of the White House. And as Susie said today, it's deeply unfortunate that happened, but it won't distract us from making America great again. And President Trump...
Deeply unfortunate that happened. Really?
Of the White House. And as Susie said today, it's deeply unfortunate that happened, but it won't distract us from making America great again. And President Trump has been such a productive president and has accomplished more in 11 months than most presidents do in 8 years because of his vision and his tenacity, which is executed on and facilitated by our great White House Chief of Staff, Susie Wiles, whom I'm very proud of to call a boss and a mentor and a friend.
Yeah.
Damn, is she really that untouchable? I mean, yeah, apparently. That's the impression I'm getting. Sheesh. They don't want Trump to get mad at her? You think that's it? You think that if the pressure builds to a point where Trump feels he has to get angry with her, it's going to blow up the entire goddamn... Like, that's it, basically? It's all going to catch on fire? Maybe. Trump did get asked about it. Okay, I was looking for clips. I couldn't find anything on a sin. Oh, it's just in text? Trump defends Susie Wiles, telling the New York Post he has a possessive and addictive personality. No, she meant that you see, I don't drink alcohol, so everyone knows that, but I've often said that if I did, I'd have a very good chance of being an alcoholic. I have said that many times about myself. I do. It's a very possessive personality. I've said many times about myself, I'm fortunate I'm not a drinker. If I did, I could very well... Wait, did somebody close to Trump tell Donald Trump that in the interview, Susie Wiles merely said that Trump could be an alcoholic? Like the point Susie Wiles was making wasn't that he had the personality of one in that he behaves like one, but rather that he is susceptible to alcoholism in a genetic sense? Is that an interpretation he's faking for the sake of political expediency, or did somebody like press that into him? That's crazy. They might be just hiding information from him. They've done that before. Asked if he had full confidence in Wiles, the president said, oh, she's fantastic. The real untouchable person in the admin wasn't Trump after all? Yeah, I guess so. She's going to run for president in 2028 and win.
This is an important development. It's good to see you. Thank you so much for jumping on.
You know, it's interesting. President Trump's White House Chief of Staff, Susie Wiles, I assume you've met her, you know her. She told Vanity Fair in a newly released interview that her boss, quote, we're talking about the president, quoting her, has an alcoholic's personality, governing with a, quote, view that there's nothing he can't do. President Trump famously does not drink, and Wiles herself grew up.
Well, I'm taking all this as a good sign. That's what I'm doing. Susie Wiles is unhappy, getting sloppy, blabbing to Vanity Fair. Vanity Fair despises them. The Trump administration has to grit their teeth and deal with it, even though Susie Wiles objectively f***ed up because they know that she's irreplaceable. She feels disrespected. Susie Wiles, you mean? I mean, probably. Can you imagine babysitting for these people? Can you imagine this being your job? Awful. I mean, imagine talking to Miller for more than 5 minutes. Yeah, no, it can't be. It can't be good.